My family laughed when I said I was bringing a +1 to the reunion, and my aunt said, imaginary boyfriends don't count. Then a black SUV rolled up, security stepped out first, and the man they mocked took my hand in front of everyone. Imaginary boyfriends don't count, my aunt said, and the whole backyard laughed. I held my smile. I held my store-bought dessert, a peach cobbler in a foil pan, because I'd been too anxious to bake that morning. My face was on fire. My cousin Jake raised his beer like a trophy. Clara brought a +1 again. What is it this year? Emotional support cat? More laughing. Loud. Mean. The kind that follows you home and sits on your chest at 2 in the morning. I'm 31. I teach 11th grade English at a public high school 40 minutes from where I grew up. To my family, that makes me a punchline. The leftover daughter. The one nobody picked. My sister Leah is a malpractice attorney. She married a cardiothoracic surgeon named David. Their daughter Mia has reportedly never cried in front of another human being. My mother repeats this fact at every gathering like it's a verified Olympic record. My family worships Leah the way some families worship saints, with candles they don't realize they're lighting. Me, they mock. Every reunion, every holiday, every single year, like clockwork, like a tradition nobody voted for but everybody shows up to anyway. So where is he, Clara? Jake said, grinning at his girlfriend Brianna like he needed an audience to land it. This secret boyfriend of yours? He's on his way, I said. Sure he is. Jake winked. What's his name? Voldemort? I checked my phone. 4:52 p.m. No new text since the one at noon that just said running behind. Don't panic. My stomach turned to ice. What if he didn't come? What if I really was the joke they'd decided I was? 11 years running. His name is Ethan, I said quietly. Ooh, Ethan. Jake made a face like he'd bitten a lemon. What's he do? Sell insurance? My eyes burned. I hated myself for it. So I said the one true thing I had left. The thing I'd promised 3 different people in suits I would never say at a family barbecue. He's the governor. The backyard went dead silent. One perfect, awful beat. A lawnmower 2 yards over, a dog barking somewhere, nothing else. Then Jake howled. He laughed so hard he choked on his beer, foam coming out his nose. A governor! He shouted, loud enough for the whole party to hear, loud enough for Mrs. Pelletier 2 fences down to hear. She finally topped herself. My Aunt Carol pressed a hand to her chest, eyes full of fake pity, the kind she'd perfected at my grandmother's funeral, where she cried louder than anyone who'd actually liked the woman. Oh, sweetie, you don't have to make things up. I'm not making it up, I said. My voice cracked right down the middle, and I felt it crack the way you feel a hairline fracture before you ever see the X-ray. Sure, honey. Jake wiped tears of laughter from his eyes. Governor of Narnia? I stood up. My folding chair scraped against the patio stone, a sound like something tearing. I was done. I was leaving and never coming back. And this time I meant it the way you mean it when you've meant it 9 times before and finally believe yourself. Then I heard it. Tires on gravel, slow, heavy. Not a minivan, not Uncle Bill's truck coming back with more ice. The side gate swung open. A man in a dark suit stepped through first. Sunglasses, even though the sun was already low and orange, a coiled wire behind his ear. He scanned the yard the way you'd scan a parking lot if you thought someone might be in it who shouldn't be. Who the hell is that? Uncle Bill barked, spatula frozen over the grill. The man's eyes found me. Miss Bennett. My whole family turned and stared at me like I'd grown a second head. A second agent followed him in. A third moved along the fence line, slow and unhurried. Then Ethan walked through the gate. I'm going to stop the scene right there because I think you need the 14 months before that moment to understand why my hands were shaking so hard. I dropped my phone in the grass. I'd been teaching for 9 years when I met him. October, a Tuesday. The kind of gray afternoon where the heat in my classroom either didn't work or worked too hard. No in between. He came to Jefferson High as part of a listening tour on public education funding. He was a state senator then, not governor yet, and his team had picked 3 classrooms across the district at random. Mine happened to be one of them. He sat in the back of my 5th period class for 51 minutes and didn't say a word until the bell rang. Then he stayed another 20, asking me real questions, not photo op questions, about reading levels, about the 11 kids in that class who didn't have a textbook to take home, about why I'd spent $400 of my own salary on paperbacks of The Great Gatsby that September. I didn't think anything of it. Politicians visit schools. Politicians leave. He came back in February, alone, no staff, no press. Said he'd been thinking about something I'd said about kids and dignity. We got coffee at a place 2 blocks from school called Mill and Bean, and I remember exactly what I ordered, a medium drip, black, because I was too nervous to explain a more complicated order. We talked for 90 minutes. I had practice essays to grade and didn't grade a single one that night. By June, we were quietly, carefully, seriously together. And by quietly, I mean it the way you mean a secret you're keeping for someone else's sake, not your own. Ethan was already being floated for governor. His chief of staff, a sharp, tired man named Marcus Webb, 14 years in state politics, the last 6 working for Ethan specifically, sat us both down in May with a legal pad and a face like a funeral director. her. "I'm not telling you to hide her," he said to Ethan, not unkindly. "I'm telling you that the second this becomes public, it stops being about her. It becomes a storyline. Opposition research will go through her divorce filings. She doesn't have any. Good. Her student loans, her parking tickets, her Instagram from 2014. They will find something. They always find something. I just want you both walking in with your eyes open." I asked him what he thought I should do. "Decide if you can survive being a headline," Marcus said. "Most people can't, and there's no shame in that." I thought I could. I didn't know yet what it would cost me at my own family's picnic table. The first time I almost told them was Thanksgiving, 13 months ago. Ethan and I had been together 5 months by then. I sat at my mother's table while Leah's husband David explained, unprompted, the 7 steps of a coronary artery bypass to a table of people who had asked him 0 questions about it, and I thought, I could end this right now. I could say his name and watch every fork stop moving. I told myself it wasn't the right moment. There's never a right moment to detonate something. I rationalized it as patience. Really, it was fear, dressed up in a nicer coat. Christmas, 11 months ago, I noticed the second sign. My mother had started referring to my situation to other relatives in a hushed voice, like singleness was a diagnosis. Aunt Carol asked if I'd considered lowering my standards a little, just to get some practice. I told myself it was just Carol being Carol. The evidence said otherwise. My mother had started a dating profile for me on a site called Coffee Meets Bagel without asking, and showed it to me with genuine pride, like a gift. My hands went cold reading the bio she'd written for me. Sweet school teacher, a little awkward, easy to please. New Year's 10 months ago, Jake brought a date to a family game night and introduced her to everyone by her full name and occupation. "This is Brianna, she's a dental hygienist." And then turned to me and said, in front of 9 people, "Clara doesn't bring dates because there's nothing to bring." I laughed along. I always laughed along. It was the only currency I had left at that table. Each time I told Ethan a piece of it, and each time he got quieter and angrier in a way he tried to hide from me, which somehow made it worse. "Let me come," he said more than once. "Let me just come and meet them." And every time, Marcus would gently, professionally kill it. Polling was tight. A primary challenger was sniffing around. A reveal had to be controlled, timed, lawyered, not lobbed into a backyard full of people who, frankly, none of his team trusted to keep their mouths shut for 48 hours, let alone forever. There was a 5th one in March that I almost didn't survive emotionally. Leah's baby shower for Mia, thrown 6 months before her due date because my mother insisted on doing it properly. 30 women crowded into my mother's living room. A banner that said, "Welcome little Mia" in gold cursive, and a game where everyone wrote predictions for the baby on index cards. Mine said in my own handwriting, "She'll grow up surrounded by people who love her loudly." Aunt Carol read it aloud to the room and then added, unprompted, "Must be nice. Some of us are still waiting on our turn, right, Clara?" 29 women turned to look at me holding a tiny gift bag with a single onesie inside, and I smiled the smile I'd practiced since I was 19, the one that doesn't reach anywhere near my eyes. I called Ethan from my car in my mother's driveway afterward and cried for the first time in front of him about any of it. He didn't say much. He just stayed on the phone while I drove home, 51 minutes of mostly silence. The same 51 minutes he'd once sat in the back of my classroom not saying a word. I told myself that meant something. It did. I started seeing a therapist that spring, Dr. Lena Ortiz, a licensed clinical social worker with 11 years in practice, an office above a dry cleaner with a white noise machine that never quite drowned out the dryers. I went in saying I needed help managing family stress. 6 sessions in, she said something that stuck with me since. "You're not failing to set boundaries, Clara. You're succeeding at protecting a man's career at the direct cost of your own dignity. I want you to notice that trade every single time you make it." I didn't like hearing it. I didn't stop making the trade. Not yet. By spring of this year, things had changed in ways my family didn't know about. Ethan had announced his run for governor in March. Polling had him up 11 points by May. And somewhere in there, May 14th, a Tuesday, in his kitchen, both of us still in work clothes, he told me he was done being careful. "I'm not losing you to a campaign schedule," he said. "I'd rather lose the race." Marcus didn't love it, but Marcus had also started to like me in his clipped, suspicious way, and he came around to a plan. We'd go public on our own terms, our own timeline, with a single coordinated announcement, a short statement, one approved photo, no tabloid feeding frenzy. Quiet, controlled, dignified. The opposite of what eventually happened in my aunt's backyard. That meant, for a few more months, total radio silence. No public photos, no tagged locations, a non-disclosure agreement. I signed myself voluntarily because I understood the stakes better than anyone gave me credit for. 14 pages, drafted by the campaign's outside counsel, a firm I won't name, with a single clause I remember clause by clause. Disclosure of the relationship prior to the agreed announcement date may result in immediate and significant harm to ongoing campaign operations. I was the only person on earth outside Ethan's tightest circle who knew the date they'd picked, which is what made made what happened next so frightening. His protective detail had been assigned in June, once the polling numbers made him a real frontrunner. Not Secret Service, which is federal and reserved for the president and a short list of others, but the State Police Executive Protective Unit, the team that shadows governors and serious gubernatorial candidates. The agent in charge of close protection was Dana Reyes, 12 years with the unit, 6 of them running advance work for statewide officials. She was the one who, in early July, called me directly for the first time. "Miss Bennett, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest," she said. "Has anyone in your family approached you about money in exchange for information about your relationship?" My stomach dropped through the floor. "No." "Why?" "We picked up some chatter," she said. "I can't get more specific than that right now. I just need you to tell me immediately if anyone does." I hung up and sat on my kitchen floor for 10 minutes. 2 days later, Marcus called. His voice was different than I'd heard it before. "Careful, the way you talk to someone right before you tell them something is broken. There's a reporter," he said. "Priya Patel, covers the State House for the State Tribune. 6 years on the beat, good reporter, plays it straight most of the time. She reached out to our press office this morning asking, and I'm quoting her email, whether the campaign can confirm or deny that Senator Hale has been in a long-term relationship with a Jefferson High School teacher named Clara Bennett." "How?" I said, and I genuinely could not finish the sentence. "We don't know yet," Marcus said, "but somebody talked." It took Dana's team 4 days to figure out who. I wish I could tell you I was shocked. It was Jake. Not maliciously exactly, or, fine, maliciously, but not the way you'd expect from a movie villain. Jake had been laid off from his sales job in April. He'd put a few $1,000s on a credit card he couldn't pay down. In late June, scrolling a tip line page for a gossip aggregator called Deep Dive Daily, not the Tribune, a smaller, sleazier outlet that pays cash for tips, he'd seen a post offering $5,000 for verified, exclusive political relationship scoops. Dana's team got a screenshot, through channels I still don't fully understand and didn't ask too many questions about, of a message thread between Jake and a stringer who worked freelance for both Deep Dive Daily and, occasionally, fed scraps to legitimate reporters like Priya Patel to build relationships. The message, dated June 29th, 11:47 p.m., read, "My cousin's been secretly dating Gov candidate Ethan Hale for over a year. Family doesn't even know. I can get you photos from her phone if the price is right. Need at least 5K. Quick pause. If you want more stories like this in better quality, my Spotify's linked in the description." He never got the photos. I'd changed my passcode that spring after Ethan, only half joking, suggested I should, but Jake had clearly been digging. A half-overheard phone call here. A glimpse of a contact saved as E. There. Maybe my unusually evasive answers every time anyone asked who I was seeing. He'd pieced together enough to be dangerous, and he'd tried to sell it. I found out on a Thursday night, July 9th, sitting at my kitchen table with my hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had gone cold an hour earlier, while Marcus walked me through it on speakerphone in that same careful voice. "We have it contained for now," he said. "Priya hasn't run anything. She's a real journalist. She wants confirmation, not a leaked screenshot from a stringer with an axe to grind. But Clara, I have to be straight with you. If this breaks before we're ready, before there's a real statement, it breaks as a scandal. Secret relationship, family didn't know. Candidate hid girlfriend from public. It writes itself, and none of those headlines are true. But true stops mattering once it's a headline." "What do we do?" I said. My hands had started shaking. I remember staring at them like they belonged to someone else. "You have a choice to make," Marcus said. "And it has to be tonight, because Priya's editor wants an answer by tomorrow on whether to run with what they've got, sourced or not. Option 1, we get ahead of it. A real statement our terms tomorrow morning before anyone else controls the story. Option 2, we ask for more time, try to bury it, hope it doesn't break before the family reunion you mentioned is happening. When Sunday?" "Sunday," I said. 2 days away. "If we ask for more time and it leaks anyway," Marcus said, "it leaks ugly, and it leaks while you're standing in a backyard full of people who already think you're a liar. I won't sugarcoat that for you." I thought about Dr. Ortiz, about the trade she'd named 6 months earlier, protecting his career at the cost of my own dignity, every single time. I thought about Jake's text. "I can get you photos. Need at least 5K. My own cousin had priced me at $5,000. "I'm done hiding," I said, and I heard my voice steady out as I said it, the crack from a year of reunions finally closing instead of widening. Whatever happens Sunday happens, but I'm not doing one more year of this. Ethan didn't sleep that night either, he told me later. He spent it on the phone with Marcus and the campaign's communications team, redrafting a statement 4 different ways. Around 1 a.m., he called me, and I could hear how tired he was, and underneath the tired, how angry. Not at me, never at me, but at every year of every reunion he hadn't been allowed to walk into. "I want to do this my way," he said, "not a press release at 6 a.m. while you're standing alone in your kitchen reading it off your phone like everyone else." I want to walk into that backyard and meet your family myself. Today, if it has to leak today. Sunday, if we get that long. I'm done being the secret you're not allowed to have. Your numbers, I started, are mine to risk, he said. Clara, I have spent 14 months asking my own girlfriend to apologize for me with her silence. I'm not doing it anymore. Priya Patel's editor, as it turned out, gave them until Monday, a single extra day, the kind of professional courtesy a real journalist extends when a campaign asks for 48 hours to confirm details responsibly, instead of stonewalling. It wasn't generosity. It was Priya protecting her own story from getting scooped by a screenshot-based hit piece with no named sources. But it bought us Sunday. Dana Reyes ran the security plan herself. If we're doing this in an open backyard with 30 people and 0 advance notice, she told Ethan flatly, in a call I was on, I need full control of the perimeter. I need eyes on the gate, and I need you to let my team go in first. Non-negotiable. Understood, Ethan said. And sir, she added, for what it's worth, I read the family's social media. Your girlfriend's about to walk into some kind of family roast. I just want you to know, I get why you want to do it this way. So that's where we were, that Sunday at 4:52 p.m., when I checked my phone for a text that hadn't come, when my aunt told the whole backyard that imaginary boyfriends don't count, when I stood up to leave for the last time and heard tires on gravel instead. The man in sunglasses said my name. My family stared at me like I'd grown a second head. A second agent came through the gate. A third moved the fence line. Then Ethan walked through. No suit. Jeans, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to the forearm. The same calm, steady face I'd watched on the news 100 times and touched in person 1,000 more. The backyard didn't just get quiet. It went into a vacuum. Even the dog 2 yards over had stopped barking, like it had read the room. Sorry I'm late, he said easily, like this was any Tuesday. Traffic, and my security insisted on sweeping the yard first. He walked straight past Jake like he wasn't there at all. He took my hand. He leaned in and kissed my cheek, slow and soft, like he'd done it 1,000 times before, even though technically, in public, in front of other people, he never had. Hi, sweetheart, he said quietly. You look beautiful. Glass shattered behind me. My mother had dropped the lemonade pitcher. A clank, then a hiss. Jake's beer hit the grass and died at his feet, foam crawling toward his sneakers. Aunt Carol's wine sloshed down the front of her blouse. She didn't even notice. Ethan laced his fingers through mine and turned to face 30 frozen Bennetts. Thank you for having me, he said. Clara's told me so much about all of you. Nobody said a word. Somewhere behind me, I heard Leah whisper, "Oh my God," to David, who didn't answer, because for the first time in 11 years of family gatherings, David didn't have an explanation ready. Uncle Bill finally found his voice. He wiped his greasy hands on his apron, squinting like he could squint the SUV out of existence. No offense, he said, but what's a governor doing with our Clara? She teaches high school English. He said it like an accusation, like it was supposed to shrink me one last time, the way it always had. Ethan didn't blink. Senator, technically, until November, he said. But to answer your question, she's the most important person in this yard. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. She teaches kids to think critically in a world that just wants them to scroll. Last year, she spent $400 of her own salary on books for students whose families couldn't afford them. You measure people by job titles and car payments. I measure them by what they build that outlasts them. She's out there actually doing it. Nobody breathed. My aunt's mouth hung open. Jake stared at the grass like it owed him an apology, which, as it turned out, it kind of did. Ethan turned back to me, and something in his eyes shifted. The calm, public face cracking into the one I only ever saw in his kitchen at midnight. Clara, he said. He reached into his jeans pocket. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought everyone could see it through my shirt. I wasn't going to do this here, he said, lowering himself onto one knee in the wet grass, soaking the denim instantly. But since everyone's already watching, and since I've spent 14 months being told to wait for a better moment, I don't think there's such a thing as a better moment. There's just the next one you decide to take. Ethan, I grabbed his arm. Not here. Not like this. He just smiled and closed his hand around something small. Too late, sweetheart, he said. I already cleared my whole life for you. He opened his hand. A ring. Simple. Not flashy. The kind a person picks when they've actually paid attention to what someone likes instead of what photographs well. Caught the last of the evening light. I'm not asking you to marry a governor, he said. I'm asking you to marry a guy who got a little obsessed with a teacher who yelled at him for not reading the syllabus closely enough the second time he visited her classroom uninvited. Everything else is just noise. I was crying before I could decide whether I wanted to. Yes, I said. And then, because apparently once wasn't enough after 14 months of silence, yes. The backyard erupted, not in the mean laughter from 20 minutes earlier, but something that sounded almost like the same thing and was, underneath, its complete opposite. My mother was sobbing into a dish towel. Mia, who never cried, started crying, which seemed to break some kind of spell over the whole party, because everyone laughed at that, the good kind of laugh, the kind that's actually about joy. Aunt Carol made her way toward me, wine-stained and wide-eyed. Clara, I had no idea. I would never have. You would have, I said, not unkindly, but not softly, either. You did, for 11 years. I just couldn't make you believe me until somebody else made you. She didn't have an answer for that, for once. The Jake part of the story didn't come out that day. It came out 4 days later on a Thursday when Dana Reyes, who it turns out takes leak investigations as personally as she takes physical security, finished tracing the message thread conclusively enough to brief Marcus, who briefed Ethan, who told me over dinner with a look on his face like he genuinely didn't know how I'd take it. I'd already half suspected. The timing was too clean. Jake had been the loudest mocker for 11 years and the one who, the moment the SUVs rolled up, looked less shocked than guilty. I didn't call him screaming. I drove to my mother's house instead and showed her the screenshot Marcus's team had cleared me to share. I can get you photos from her phone if the price is right. Need at least 5K. And watched my mother's face do something I'd genuinely never seen it do before. Go pale, then red, then very, very still. She called a family meeting, not a reunion. An actual sit-down, 6 people at her kitchen table, the kind of room where Jake couldn't perform for an audience the way he always had at the bigger gatherings. You tried to sell your cousin's privacy, my mother said, to a tabloid, for money, while she was sitting at our table getting laughed at for the relationship you were trying to profit off of. Jake didn't have a joke ready. For the first time in my memory, Jake didn't have anything ready at all. He lost the dental supply sales job lead Brianna's father had been about to set him up with. Brianna's father, a man who read the Tribune religiously, heard the full story secondhand within a week and decided he didn't especially want his name attached to Jake's, professionally or otherwise. Brianna left him 2 months later, for reasons she told my mother had honestly been building for a while, which I believe and which I also believe Jake's $5,000 Hail Mary did absolutely nothing to slow down. Priya Patel, for her part, ran the story exactly the way Marcus had hoped. Accurate, sourced, dignified, the relationship confirmed on our terms 2 days after the engagement, with one photo we'd chosen ourselves. Ethan and me at Mill and Bean, the coffee shop where it started, not the backyard where it became public. She never used the tip from the stringer. I don't run unverified tips that read like an extortion attempt, she told Marcus, when he thanked her for sitting on it. That's not journalism, that's being someone's collection agency. It's been 9 months now. Ethan won in November, not because of the reunion video, though it did go viral within our extended family group chat in a way that still makes me wince and laugh in equal measure, but because, by his own admission, 14 months of being unable to talk about the person he loved made him campaign like a man with something to prove the second he didn't have to hide anymore. I still teach. I turned down 2 separate offers to consult on education policy from people who clearly wanted a photogenic teacher in the room more than they wanted my actual opinion on funding formulas. And I'm still deciding what, if anything, I want to do with the platform I apparently have now. Dr. Ortiz and I still meet every other week, mostly to talk about ordinary things now, whether I'm sleeping, whether I'm setting boundaries that have nothing to do with politics at all. She told me once that the wedding date doesn't matter half as much as the fact that I finally stopped apologizing for taking up space at my own family's table. Aunt Carol sends me a card every year on my birthday now. I don't know if it's guilt or genuine. And at this point, I've decided it doesn't actually matter which. I just answer it kindly and let it be what it is. Jake and I talk sometimes, not often. He apologized once, in person, badly, the way people apologize when they're more sorry about getting caught than about what they did. And I told him I appreciated it anyway, because I'd rather take an imperfect apology than spend the rest of my life waiting for a perfect one that was never coming. Last week, a student in my 5th period class, the same class Ethan first visited 3 years and 1 classroom renovation ago, raised her hand during a unit on persuasive writing and asked if it was true that the governor had proposed to me in front of, my whole family. In front of my whole family, I corrected her. But yes, she grinned. Was it because of, true love, or was it a publicity thing? I thought about it for a second. About Jake's $5,000 text, about Marcus's 14-page NDA, about Dana Reyes asking if anyone had approached me about money, about 14 months of being someone's well-kept secret before I finally decided I was done being kept. It was because I stopped letting other people decide whether I counted, I told her. Everything else was just timing. She wrote that down. I don't know if it'll end up in her essay, but it's the truest thing I've said about any of it. And for once, in my entire family's history of deciding what was real and what wasn't, nobody was around to laugh.